Welcome to the Fourth Row Podcast, your exclusive source for two-way basketball. And now, your hosts, coming to you from the Slim 4 studio, Andy and Benny Hill.
Welcome to the Fourth Row Podcast, the only podcast dedicated solely to two-way basketball here in the snowy and cold and windy and I don't know what it's doing right now, state of Utah. Yesterday it was a beautiful day and today it's not. I'm your host, Andy Hill. I'm here with the coach, Benny Hill, and the newest member of the Fourth Row, Peyton Shepard, in the Slim 4 studio, sponsored by Security National. We'd like to thank our good friend Chris Jorgensen and the E13 office, once again being our title sponsor for all of your mortgage needs. Give him a call, 283-3000. A couple announcements that we always like to share every week, and I know, Peyton, you get a chuckle out of this every time. Fourth Row Podcast is still the number one 2A podcast in the state of Utah, 43 weeks running. We may be the only one, but we're still the number one. The audio version of the podcast will release each Monday, with the YouTube version releasing last week.
Monday. You noticed that? They were both on Monday.
Make sure to follow us all on our social media channels at Fourth Row Media. Make sure you go follow Peyton on hers at Paige Shepard, right?
Yep.
And
PS Scenes.
Yes.
I've had some high school boys follow me. I'm like, I think it was the Giles kid from North Summit or Duchesne.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
I was like, hey, who's this? So thanks, I guess.
Hey, there you go. All right. And you can find all the YouTube versions of the podcast on Team Hive. So if you're on there looking for games, you don't have anything else to do, scroll down a couple bars and you'll see under podcasts, Fourth Row Media.
Wonder how we're doing on there.
I don't know. I need to talk to Barrett and see how.
Yeah, you can probably tell us if we're getting a hit or two.
Yeah, I can tell you this. Depending on how this week goes, by the end of the week, we will probably have 10,000 total downloads for the podcast.
That's awesome.
I like it.
So we're getting there. I remember last year we were just happy to get a couple hundred here and there, but
didn't you break 1,000 followers on Instagram?
we broke 1,000 followers
I know
on Instagram.
you guys were talking about it.
We blew right through that now. I don't know what we're up to now. Like
almost 1,025.
There you go.
Big time.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we do post on there quite often.
we're getting better. Yeah, we're at 1,023.
There you
There
go.
you go.
So we're getting there. Well, Benny, what we got going on tonight?
Well, tonight we got a good full slate here. We also, just for later in this week, we just finished a podcast prior to this one that we started at 7 o'clock tonight with our good friend Shane Blackett from WaspFit out of Nephi. Mm-hmm. We talked a lot about strength and conditioning and also the mental approach to basketball or athletics in general. So that'll be a podcast that comes out later this week. So we're already in full game motion right now. Peyton might have to take a second to catch up, but we'll get her going. But tonight, what's on tap for tonight? We have our weekend review. We hit the road a few times, caught some games on the road. I know Peyton watched several games this week as well. For example, Wednesday, we had Millard over here, the number one ranked Millard Eagles here in Gunnison. You and I traveled out to South Severe to watch the Kanab South Severe game. Friday, I traveled over to Millard and caught the Duchesne Millard game, which was a fantastic Region 16 matchup. Peyton will probably talk about maybe, if she feels good, some North Severe games this week. We're not gonna force her. She may or may not. She's got our girls Power 5 shakeup. It's been 2 weeks since we've had her on, so we've got some good movement there. Inside the numbers tonight, we're going to have an RPI bracket breakdown as if the playoffs started tomorrow, which has some very interesting scenarios.
Yeah, very interesting.
Boys Power 5, and we'll finish it off with our final thoughts.
All right. Well, let's go in. Let's talk about our week.
Peyton, you want to start, or you want to kind of follow up after we go?
You start.
All right, fair enough. We had, like I mentioned, Wednesday, we had the number one Millard Eagles over in town. Sporting the Gunnison Bully Dogs.
Fourth Row Media shooter shirts.
Yes. Had some people from Gunnison like, hey, what? They were sporting your shirts? I said, yes, they are, as a matter of fact. Coach Rhodes is made a very generous donation to the Slim 4 Foundation at the beginning of the season. So we appreciate that. I don't think they've lost since they've worn those shirts yet. So
Millard's playing good right now.
We're going to keep rolling with those. Anyway, Millard came into town, and Gunnison played well.
Yeah, they did. They actually played really well. They played good defensively. Millard is a good team. They're hot. They're quick. They pass the ball well. you can tell that they're seasoned out there. Those kids
Yeah.
have played together.
Even when the game got tight and close, you could tell there was really no panic. Coach George was a little upset that they didn't play as well as they wanted to play. Of course, every coach is like that. Gunnison exposed them defensively, I thought. Gunnison played really well attacking the rim and got some really easy baskets against them. But Millard offensively is just too much for some teams. It was just too much. I mean, Hunter had 34, and it seemed like he maybe had 24, but he had actually put up 34. So he shot exceptionally well. And carried them to win. But anyway, it was a very entertaining game.
Yeah, I thought Gunnison
Bulldogs showed out
played
well.
62-50. I mean, anytime you can, they had it under 10 a couple times in the fourth quarter. I think that's all you can ask for.
Defensively, the Bulldogs played really well.
Yeah, they did.
Really did.
They showed up well.
Homer alert. Jet had a good game.
He did.
Shot well.
Did.
Even his one banker that he had go in. That still counts as 3, I guess.
That's
but
right.
Anyway, that was Wednesday night. Thursday, Kanab v. South Severe.
Yeah, we made the seems like a quick trip. We've been out there. Well, I've been there twice. You've been there 3 times this season. Kanab Cowboys were in town. We were interested to see what they were going to bring. South Severe kind of rebounded. They got some big wins last week, and we were excited. There was some buzz in the gym, and Kanab came out and just physically dominated the game.
Yeah, I thought this game, the previous game was have been not as much electricity in the air. This was playoff atmosphere.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I thought Kanab was they were going from I think they led start to finish.
Yeah.
To be quite honest with you, so it was a great atmosphere.
It was fun. It was fun. We sat right behind the Kanab bench, and as a observer of basketball, especially at the high school level, it's fun to sit behind benches and see what really goes on behind the scenes, because you always think, oh, what's going on in the huddle and what's doing. There were a lot of things mentally and physically and everything else that was going on inside of Kanab's huddles when they were coming to timeouts and everything else, and it was fun to see that they were dialing up plays, they were doing things, and you could see them giving high fives, say, yep, that worked, nope, we got to do something different. Those are the things that are fun to watch.
From a coach, I was amped. I mean, I was absolutely amped watching that game, and just the energy they were playing with, the bench, their execution was spot on that game.
Yeah.
So Kanab comes out with a big win in that game.
Yeah, and we'll talk about them later in the Power 5. But very, very impressed. And then you made the quick trip over to Millard, yeah, on Friday night.
Same scenario. I sat behind the Duchesne bench in this game, and the same type of thing. They were down big. Duchesne was down big to Millard second quarter, even going into the third quarter. And it was fun to watch. Coach Hoops bringing his team together, and they started making runs, slowly started chipping away, and you could see the enthusiasm growing on Duchesne's bench and the confidence grow. Coach Hoops did a fantastic job getting his team back in that game. I think they tied it up at 44 in the fourth quarter, and then just too much Rhodes and Stevens last 4 minutes maybe. Those guys are just fantastic scorers, and so they pulled it out 65-60, but dynamic game as well.
Yeah, I was interesting. I was listening, and I don't know if this was true on the radio, but they said it was a 5-point win, and they said this was the equivalent if you added up the 3 previous games. That was the difference in the 3 previous games was 5 points.
Could have been. I think everyone knows that the 4 games. Millard's won all 4 of them, but it's almost last possession every time.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. If there's a team right now that knows how to push Millard, it's Duchesne.
And I feel like they always do that too. My dad was actually reffing that game.
Yes, he did. Yes,
and,
called a great game, by the way.
Yeah, and so I'm pretty sure they were tied going into the fourth quarter.
Yes, yep.
And he said that Coach Hoops was just yelling at his boys, pumping them up, like, we're right where we want to be. We're right where we want to be. And every time they play, it seems like it's close, and they give them a run for their money.
Well,
you could see it happening too. I mean, you could just see the confidence of Duchesne building, even though they were down 10 as it got closer and closer. You could just see it happening. Great game.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's talk about the week for the North Severe Wolves.
Yeah, so boys had a tough week. Lost a not so very close game to Duchesne. And then girls won that one at home against Duchesne. And then the North Summit Braves handled us this week. Girls went there, and I'll obviously go more into depth of that game during Power 5 stuff, but I think it was 14. The girls beat the Wolves, and then boys came and upset us and broke our hearts on senior night. It was a tough game. I felt like we controlled the whole time until the last 3 minutes, and there were just some poor decision making on our end, and they made some tough shots, and we didn't get the defensive stops when we needed to. So, I mean, there's only one more game for us in region play, and that's Gunnison on Friday. So, I mean,
you got all week to get amped for.
We got all week to hype up for Friday. You guys.
Yeah. And that'll be our senior night too. So, those games, as a PA announcer, you still like to get in the flow of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm all about the energy, and you got to keep things going. I'm sure as a coach, those nights, they just kind of drag on. And as much as you want to, you got to recognize the kids and their parents and the cheerleaders and the drill team and everything else. Lost in that is there's a big game that has a lot of implications. And sometimes it's hard to keep the energy going, or a lot of energy gets expended up front because you're all amped for all this stuff. And then it's like, wow.
Do you do senior night before the game starts?
Yeah. Amongst other things.
And Millard did theirs before, and it was well done. And I was worried about how that was going to impact the game, but man, Millard and Rote, they came out firing. So sometimes
sometimes it's really good, and sometimes you just don't know. Those are tough. There's just so many things going on that it's hard.
And coaches there's a lot of other responsibilities they have that night. Outside of the game. So sometimes it can be a distraction, but it can be a good night as well.
Yeah. Well, good.
How are you, Peyton?
Are you good?
Are you holding up this season thus far?
Good. Being a coach's wife is hard. It's very hard. And, sometimes when you have those rough weeks, like we got 2 crappy losses that really stung, I just got to go home and keep my guy happy. Got to keep him positive. I don't know much more to say about that. It's just
sometimes, it sucks.
And I think with me knowing basketball, it makes it even harder. I sometimes wish I was like, I didn't know what was going on, so I didn't have to go home and talk 2 hours about basketball. But it's also a good thing to kind of talk through things and see what's his game plan for the next week? How are we going to get these boys back up and going?
Oh, bless your heart.
No,
yeah.
I try. I try.
That's good.
We've missed you. It's been several weeks since we've had you here, and we did miss having you on the studio, so we're glad you're here. And girls Power 5. Should we bounce into that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about what we say really matters. Let's talk about the Power 5. The Power 5 this year is sponsored by our good friends at Barney Trucking. Since 1947, they've been providing the energy needs here in Utah, as well as an important part of the local economy. If you're interested in driving one of the big, beautiful blue and white trucks, I see more white trucks than blue trucks anymore, reached out to them at barneyjobs.com. All right, let's jump into the girls' Power 5.
I tell you, I almost pushed Peyton till next week, and she was very disappointed.
I was so excited to come.
I said, dude, we're going to make it happen. We're gonna do a doubleheader tonight.
Yeah.
So, fire off with what you got. We're excited here too.
Okay, so this is probably my biggest shakeup since we went from preseason to the SVC preview. I kind of made a big jump there, but this week was huge. And I was telling my sisters before I came what I was doing for my Power 5, and they're like, okay, it's different, but you have to remember what do you always say? Power 5 is who's the hottest 5
That's
teams
right
now.
Who's the hottest.
So you got to go by the rules.
Yeah.
So we're starting off with my dark horse. Number 2 is South Sevier. They are sitting 11-9 right now. They lost to Beaver by 8 last week, and Sydney Patterson had a great way with led the way with 19 points. And then they got a huge win against the Kanab Cowboys.
Saw that,
yeah.
Yep, so 2-point win over them. But as I was looking at the stats, they outscored the Cowboys 16-2 in the third quarter. So huge quarter for them. Kinley Jensen led the team with 15, and Hazelyn Taylor had 4 threes in the win. So awesome win for them.
Huge win.
They were in the top 5, but they are a dark horse right now. But they're very capable.
Looks like they're sitting 6th in the RPI right now.
And then my dark horse number 1 is my North Severe Wolves, sitting at 13-6 on the season. They were in the top 5 as well the last time I was on here, but I mean, homer alerts can be really positive, or I don't know if they can be extra negative. I don't know. I don't think this is a negative thing.
You can go either way with them.
Yeah. I don't think
I think you can be a little more brutal with homer alerts because it's okay.
Yeah. Anyways, we beat Millard by 3, but we were at Millard and we were up 20 at halftime. We let them come back and cut it to a 3-point game. So that was a tough thing to watch for me. And then we beat Duchesne by 5, so we're not losing. But in that Duchesne game, we were also up, 10, 11, 12 points, and we let them cut it back to 5. So as far as going into state goes, that's almost like a little bit of a red flag. Makes me, as a North Severe Wolves fan, a little bit nervous that we're not closing out games that we should. And then, like I said, we went to North Summit, lost by 14. We started hot but died out quick. And then in that second half, we got outscored by 15 points. But Trey and Brooklyn Butler had 11 points in the game. We have 3 or 4 girls averaging, just 10, 11, 12 a game, which is really good for us. But I'd like to see them come out against Gunnison this week, work on some things that they need to offensively to get us back on the right path.
Is this their only game this week?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. So dark horse
at North Severe.
Yeah, that's our senior night. So.
That's fair.
Yep. All right. So then Power 5, we have a newcomer, and that is the Parowan Rams.
Parowan surfaces, huh?
Yep. So I've thought about putting them in as a dark horse a couple times. I've had kind of Draper APA and Duchesne sitting in there the past few weeks, and that's because they weren't necessarily winning games. They had some early losses against Draper APA, but only by 2. They lost to North Severe by 6 earlier in the season. They beat Duchesne, so that they've been a dark horse, which is good. But I feel like they're finally clicking, finally coming along, and what better time than right now, right? And so some huge games that they have is they beat South Severe by 11. Wow. Brooklyn Hewlett, I'm pretty sure she's a senior, but she had 21 points in that game. And then they went and beat Kanab this last week as well at home by 1. And Hewlett had 21 with 5 threes.
Wow.
So she seems to be hot right now, and I know she has some good supporting staff. There's a couple other girls averaging, 10, 11. But they're hot, and I'm excited to see kind of where it takes them.
That's how you get in the Power 5.
That's right.
Knock off big teams and get hot.
I know, and so they play Enterprise and South Severe this week, so we'll kind of get to see that second rematch with South Severe and how they do.
Awesome.
That
was number 4. That was number 5, right?
That was number 5. Yep.
Number 4.
Okay, we got my Kanab Cowboys sitting 16-3. They had a rough week. Rough week, but it's okay. They are a very strong team with very strong players. Like I said, they lost to Parowan by 1, and then they lost to South Severe by 2. So tough losses, but they don't have much time to sulk about it, as they're going to Beaver on Wednesday, and then they have Enterprise on Friday. So that Beaver Kanab game is going to be huge.
Oh yeah.
So from your perspective, obviously Kanab was rolling along.
Mm-hmm.
Had that undefeated season. Then Beaver got them. Now they've taken a couple on the chin. Are they hitting the panic button, or are they okay?
I mean, it looks like they are a little bit, but I think they're going to be fine. They have the tools that they need. They're very well coached, very well rounded. I think they're going to be okay. I think these next 2 weeks are going to be crucial to get the wheels turning again and get some wins, get back on the road. So that was number 4. Moving into number 3 is Draper APA, sitting at 17-4. And this is very interesting to me, so don't quote me on anything I say. This is kind of the rumor on the street.
We'll dig into it once you get it.
I've heard they have canceled their second half of region, and they were able to do so because they got principals of that region together. I don't know exactly how, but they were all okay with canceling that second half of region. And so then they went and scheduled the number 3A's number 4 team Carbon and number 2's team Richfield. Because I'm pretty sure that region is smaller, so they have extra games to give. So that's how they got those. But last week they went up to Carbon and they were up 20 at halftime, but then like the Dinos came back, but got a win 67-60. So huge. I had them as a dark horse because, you know, they weren't playing those tough teams in region.
Correct.
They were getting 60-point wins every night.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at their schedule. So they had 81-22, 85-22, 77-7, 70-23.
Yeah, that's insane.
Not that exciting, nor
very
helpful.
Yeah, it's
Very
not
helpful,
helping them.
yes.
So I mean, whatever happened with
Yeah.
being able to cancel that, it's good for them. They get to push themselves these last couple weeks. But what's interesting with them is 2 of their losses do come from the North Summit Braves. So they're 17-4. Kind of something to think about, but in that win against Carbon, Baldwin, she's the coach's daughter. She had 25 with 4 threes, and Karchner had 20, and a team total of 9 threes. So they're shooting the ball well. They are coming out firing, and I'm really excited to see how they do against Richfield on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's good to have teams from those northern regions too. Even on the boys' side, we got a couple we'll talk about in the Power 5, but you know, you just don't see a lot of them coming out of those northern regions. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and I put them at number 3 because if they come out and beat, you know, number
Richfield?
3's 4A and then potentially Richfield this week, like that's huge for 2A basketball.
That's awesome. All right, number 2.
Okay, North Summit Braves sitting 15-5 on the season. I went back and looked because I remember we talked a lot about at the preview they really struggled.
Yeah.
They played Kanab and Beaver. It was rough. They haven't lost since then. So they are hot. They are hot. And they are a team that has all the tools that it takes to win a championship. They have big, strong, very capable posts down low, and then their guards are so quick, like you just can't stay in front of them. They don't shoot a lot of threes, but I don't see why you would necessarily need to if you can go get a layup. So yeah, they were 2-0 this week, beating Gunnison and then North Sevier with the 14-point win. They had 4 girls in double digits with Chesney Langston having 20. And then they played Duchesne and Millard, which I would assume they'd get 2 wins this week, but you never know, coming down the stretch of region play.
Awesome. And your number 1 team for the week?
Yep, Beavers, 18-1.
Coach Marshall and his Beavers.
18-1.
Yep.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, they lost their first game and haven't lost since?
Yep.
That is right.
So, I mean, that would define a hot team.
Yeah, that would define a hot
18
team, yeah.
wins in a row. They beat South Sevier 45-37. And what's huge about this game, I didn't get to watch it, but they outscored the Rams 14-0 in the fourth quarter.
Wow.
So they were down, well, I don't know the math. They were down 6, 7, whatever. Came back, beat them by 8. And Gentry Brown led the way with 11 points. And then there were a few other girls in right there around double digits as well.
Nice.
But they're hosting Kanab on Wednesday, which, like I said, will be a huge game, and then at San Juan on Friday. But they're hot and they're rolling, and you know, I think they know they're good and they got confidence, and that's something you wish to have that going into state. So,
Two questions for you. One, obviously Beaver has the longest boys. This is talking boys and girls. Beaver has the longest winning streak of 17 games. Who has the longest winning streak in boys?
I'm going to say Millard.
you think?
Millard.
It is Millard?
10. 10 straight.
Who did they lose to?
The last time they lost, I believe, would have been a 3A team, Richfield or Juab, perhaps down at the Steve Hodson Classic.
That would have been Christmas time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the other thought that I had, in girls basketball, if there is a dominant post, is that almost unguardable?
I would say more so in girls basketball than boys. Yeah. I mean, like you look at North Summit, they have the Langston girl. She's very tall. If you don't have someone tall, like there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
Same with kind of Kanab with Riley Little. I know a couple in those losses she was in foul trouble, which hurts the Cowboys, but I definitely think it's hard to deal with in girls if you don't have someone that can at least get them out of the paint.
So if you were a girls basketball coach and you had a post, you'd be pounding the post.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially there's like those 2 girls I was talking about. They not only are tall and can rebound, but they're athletic, which is a double-edged
They
sword
got skills
too.
and they can score. So very nice.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. And
The reason why I asked that is because in boys that isn't always the case. You could have, case in point, Parowan. They have some big players, but that's really not a major emphasis for them. But I can imagine girls, if you can go to that, just keep going.
Yep. I mean, I definitely think using your post in girls is going to be ideal.
yeah.
Shoot a high percentage and score at will.
Well, thank you. That was a great breakdown. Quick recap. Let's start from the bottom, go to the top, Peyton.
Okay, bottom up, we got South Sevier, North Sevier, Parowan, Kanab, Draper APA, North Summit, and then the Beavers staying at number 1.
Right. Awesome. Well, in a minute when we go into our Inside the Numbers segment, we're going to talk a little bit about breakdown and matchups where we're sitting right now. So we'll come back to all these here in a minute. For right now, let's jump into what we say really matters on the boys' side, and let's talk about the boys' Power 5, Benny.
Boys Power 5 right now?
We got some shakeups this week.
All right, we'll cover RPI in the Inside the Numbers section.
Yep.
Yes, we have. I'll get my papers here. Our dark horses. I think our permanent dark horse, our number 2 permanent dark horse, is just going to be Parowan.
Yeah.
They've climbed the ladder and dropped back down the ladder. We're just going to leave them at the number 2 dark horse for here on out, simply because they could beat anybody at any time, just with their personnel, with Brock Felder and the weapons they have, Cash Mortensen, Luke Millett. They have the tools and the pieces to win any game, but they're just not doing it. But they're going to be a dark horse just because they can.
Yeah. They had a tough week. They took another loss at San Juan, 61-58. Kudos to the Broncos.
That was on the road?
On the road in Blanding. And then Kanab just shellacked them, 73-44. Parowan went from the top of the top to they're struggling right now, and I know they're trying to get some things figured out down there. But like you mentioned, at any given time they could win. They're at Enterprise on Tuesday, and then they're home against South Sevier in their senior night. So that will be a very interesting game.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. You look at, not very often do you have in a home-and-home series the one team winning by 30-plus go to the other side and the other team win by 30-plus.
Yeah, it's pretty.
For two good teams.
Yeah.
With great players. It's just fascinating. You don't see that very often.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. All right, another dark horse we got this week.
American Heritage. They've stayed in that spot simply because we just don't know.
Yeah, they're still floating around.
Winning a lot of games. Currently sitting at, what do you have them at, 12-4?
12-4, 7-0 in region. I'm going to go out there. Although they almost did get beat by the Fighting Hendersons from Rockwell.
Yes.
73-71. I don't see them losing in region the rest of the way out. They're going to stay where they are on the RPI. They're an interesting team because nobody. Yep. San Juan saw them early. Enterprise saw them early, but
outside of that,
who
haven't been challenged. Really,
haven't been challenged.
Maybe you could look at. I mean, you talked about earlier. Talking about APA Draper's girls scorers. I think American Heritage is putting up similar scores throughout their region as well. So they're sitting at 12-4 in their region, 5 in the RPI, and that will probably stay the same. They'll keep winning out in region. So they will remain a dark horse. Our new visitor to the Power 5 this week, the Duchesne Eagles.
Yeah, I think the Duchesne Eagles are one of those teams who they're just scrappy enough to stick around. They played the last week's number 1 team, the Millard Eagles. They played them as tough as anybody around. They're just kind of scrappy. They had a win against North Sevier 76-42, and then they lost against Millard. But this week, they've got Tabiona at home. They've got Gunnison travels to Duchesne, makes a long trip out of the basin, and then they're at home on Friday against North Summit in their senior game. And we're going to talk about how these matchups work, but I think Duchesne is primed right now where they could challenge some teams early on and find themselves easily getting into the state tournament.
Oh, I agree with you. Peyton, you saw Duchesne play twice now. What's your thoughts on the Eagles?
I think Jep Young is kind of a force to be reckoned with.
He's a great player.
He is, and not to throw the Wolves under the bus here, but he had 24 rebounds against us, and our whole team had 26. So, you've just got to shut him down, and I think that they can play with anyone.
No, they have Coach Hoops is in my opinion, has maximized the skill level and the skill set on his team and put together a very, very competitive basketball group. The game that I got to see up close, like I said, I sat behind their bench, which is a lot of fun for me just to see the dynamics and things, see how things work. These guys respond to Coach Hoops. They really do. And in that game over there, Jep Young, he when they were down, he made the adjustment. I could tell that he made the adjustment at halftime that they were going to get the ball into Jep Young in a variety of scenarios. Millard continued to play a zone, and so they worked some internal screening, attacking with guards and dump-offs to Jep Young. And that's how they came back. Was with Jep. He's a special player. He does a really good job. He finished the game with 20 points. Parker Crum had a great game. He finished with 19 threes. Cade Gines, 10 points with 1 3. Others in the scoring, Dallin Porter and Hunter Gardner. I thought all of Coach Hoops' team, when they were down, man, they're just grinders. They are just tough. And if you're tough, don't necessarily take care of the ball, value the basketball, and play solid defense, which all these guys did. Man, they're a tough team.
Yeah, they're going to be a tough out when it comes state tournament time.
Did many of those in the South region play them in preseason?
They played South Sevier.
They played Kanab
in the preview, and then South Sevier a few weeks after that.
They pushed Kanab right. It was a one-possession game.
Yeah,
one of the first ones down the preview. So they've. With Jep Young, it's a whole different. I think he's one of the most improved players in 2A. Last year, he was kind of non-existent, and he's really came back this year.
He's solid. He can shoot mid range. He can post up. He's got a good soft touch, good free throw shooter.
Yeah. So Duchesne Eagles coming number 5 this week.
Yeah. So excited to go see them over in Millard. Number 4,
South Sevier Rams.
Currently sitting at 13-6, 5-3 in region. This past week, they had wins against Beaver, 82-38, and the before-mentioned 74-62 loss to Kanab.
Yeah, and then yesterday, I don't have the score on here. They played yesterday afternoon, and they beat San Juan at home yesterday. I think it's a 14, 15-point game. The Kanab game was interesting.
Yeah.
Playoff-type atmosphere. Kanab came in. They were amped up.
And usually South Sevier plays a style of basketball that generally dictates the game tempo with their aggressive offensive nature and the way they play defense with a half-court trap. They're usually very good at controlling and playing how they want to play, and other teams have to adjust and adapt to that. This game appeared that Kanab established their dominance very early, almost the first possession, that they were going to do what they wanted to do. And South Sevier, to their credit, man, they're gamers, and they can flat score. And so it was a close game. It never got out of hand, and you never can really put South Sevier away.
No.
You can't just blow them out because they're such competitors for one thing, and they have such great scorers, and they can shoot the three. So they rarely ever get blown out. And this is another case here. But Kanab dominated and controlled this game.
Yeah, they did, and they had a great game plan. They came out. Cale Glover had a fantastic game. I mean, he was on fire, not only from the three-point line, running the point out there. Allows when Cale is playing good, it allows Cornell to get out in space, and so he's not bringing the ball down. I thought both of those guys played really well. Kaysen played exceptionally well, clean up the glass. Logan Little played well. One of the guys that I thought just ran his guts out was Derek Brown. He followed Ridge Tibbs around all night long, and Tibbs still had a quiet 19, but Tibbs didn't hurt him from the perimeter like normally. He was attacking the basket a lot more than I've seen him, and he got to the basket a lot, and it was almost as if Kanab said, all right, we're going to give you that, we're not going to give up the three. And very impressed from the rebounding side. Kanab flat just cleaned up the boards.
Yeah, they did some serious work there. Scoring for the Rams, Ridge 19, Emilio Montez 11, off from where he normally is. Stockton Roberts 9. My printer ran out on ink here. Max and Bashan 8, Keegan Heath 7, and Barney 5.
Yeah.
South Sevier as our number 4 team in the Power 5. Always offensively deadly. susceptible to size and physicals of bigger players. So as we've seen against Enterprise, Kanab, I think, bullied them a little bit in the paint. But South Severe is always going to be deadly.
Yep, they're tough.
They can score.
They've got one game left this week on their schedule. They've got Parowan at home. Parowan is home for their senior night on Thursday. That's the only game the Rams have this week. So that one's going to be an interesting one to see if Parowan can rebound and see if South Severe can rebound. That's a big game. A lot of implications.
That'll be a very interesting matchup too, because Parowan hung with South Severe and gave them everything they wanted. South Severe ended up winning that game with an amazing shot to put it in overtime. So that game in Parowan could be very exciting.
Yep.
So number 3, we've already been talking about it, so you just might as well roll into it.
The Kanab Cowboys. Yep. I think right now that Kanab is, I think they're playing almost as well as anybody. It just so happens that there's 2 other teams above them that are playing really well too. But I was so impressed. We talked to Coach Glazier before the game. You could tell he was nervous.
Oh yeah,
there was some nervous energy there. He was amped up. But when they came out and they got on the bench, watching that coaching staff, Coach Chad, Coach Orton, they're on the bench, Coach Jackson. They had a game plan, and they executed it to perfection when they came out of timeouts, when they came out of quarter breaks. They were running set plays, and they got right to them. They're giving fist bumps. They were ready for that game. And if Cale Glover can keep playing the way he is, and they get that supporting cast going the way they are, Kanab is a scary team. Last year at this time, the wheels were semi-off, and they were limping into the playoffs. I think this year they are ready to go. They've got a home game at Beaver on Tuesday, and then if everything shakes out, the region championship will be on Thursday night as they host Enterprise in their senior game in Kanab. That game will be electric.
Oh, yes.
And by the way, we got to give out a shout to our man Austin Hutchings, who
informed us we were saying his name incorrectly, so we apologize for that, Austin. But we spent the entire night visiting with him. He's a fantastic dude.
Oh my gosh, he eats, sleeps, and drinks Kanab Cowboys, and it was so fun to sit with him. He knows everything. They've even got a set play that they kind of named after him that they ran.
He's like, hey, watch this. They're going to call my play. He's like, yeah, there it is. They're calling it. They're calling it. They're calling it.
So he's the guy.
That was a lot of fun.
For their introductions, he comes out and plays the little trumpet, and they set up for him. It was a lot of fun to be with him and to see how they incorporate him, Coach Glazier, and everybody does into that whole team.
That was special.
Awesome. It's pretty awesome to see. So Kanab's got a big week, but they're playing well right now.
No, I like the we've seen, and it's no secret, we follow Kanab a fair amount, and I like the look in their eye. I like the chemistry that they've been. We've talked about their lack of chemistry throughout the season, but their chemistry on Thursday night was on point.
Yeah,
you could see it in the players' eyes, their connection with one another, their connection with their coaches. It was a good night for them.
Yeah,
hopefully they can bottle that up and keep it going.
Yep. All right, number 2,
Steady Eddie. Enterprise Wolves.
They're just kind of in the background.
It's funny how they just don't do anything flashy.
Yeah.
They never get blown out.
Nope.
They always just keep winning. Most people probably couldn't even tell you who scores or who's on their team.
But
they keep winning.
That's Enterprise. So they're 14-4 right now, 6-2 in region. Had a big win. Well, I shouldn't say a big win. They struggled on Tuesday night against Beaver. I was texting a couple guys from Enterprise, and it got dicey there for a little while.
Was that home or at Beaver?
That was at Beaver.
Oh, okay.
So 48-43, they pull out that win. And then on Thursday, they played San Juan 66-54. This week, they've got a huge game on Tuesday. They're home against Parowan. And then assuming that if they win that game, then the game on Thursday will be for the region championship at Kanab. And that game will be electric.
Yes.
So Enterprise is what Enterprise is. Like you say, they're the steady Eddie. They don't do anything fancy. They just keep winning.
Yes. So they'll stay at our 2 spot.
Yep. All right. And our number 1 team for the week?
As before mentioned, winning 10 straight, the Millard Eagles, the newly crowned Region 16 champions. With their win against Millard, they clinched that. Had a celebration after the game. So it was a great night for the Eagles. I mean, it was senior night. Their seniors played well. They get the win, and they get to celebrate a region championship that same night.
Yep.
So they're current 16-5, 7-0 in region. This past week they played the Bulldogs, got a win in Gunnison 62-50, and just beat Duchesne 65-60 at home. Their one last game in region, they have at North Summit on Wednesday.
Yep. So by virtue of our rules, and when you're at the top until you get beaten, you stay at the top.
Yep.
So Millard Eagles are going to stay there for another week. This week is big. I think Region 16, there's one big game in Region 16 that I maybe want to talk about.
What's going on Friday night?
Oh, we're coming over on senior night to Gunnison.
I really think this will be one of the games of the year, just from the simple fact that you're going to have a big crowd on Friday night. There's a lot to play for both teams. I know we got you when we went out to North Sevier, but these type of it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's going to be senior night for the Bulldogs. A lot of festivities going on, but at the end of the day, there's still a game to play, and I'm excited because this one's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a big crowd. There's going to be a lot of energy. Looking forward to that. I think that in Region 16 is really kind of settled down. Region 19 is where all the fireworks are going to happen this week. The two regions up north, they've kind of already figured out what they're going to do a long time ago.
Yeah.
So there's our Power 5. Power 5 for girls, Power 5 for the boys.
And this is cool. This is cool because now we have, really, we got 1 week and it's playoff time. Mm-hmm. So correct me if I'm wrong. So we go this week, upcoming week. When does the RPI go silent?
It's got to go this week.
This week?
I was looking last night. At some point, I think it's this week it's going to go out.
It's got to be, doesn't it? So they got to announce Saturday, don't they announce?
The announcement is Saturday morning.
So maybe.
Yes, Saturday.
So maybe, I guess we'll need to look at that maybe before we go off the podcast.
It is Saturday morning. It's going to go dark, which I still, it's stupid, but they've got to do their little reveal. And then the boys play Tuesday, Friday. Girls play, Tuesday, Saturday?
Saturday.
It's Friday.
Is that Friday?
Sure.
Tuesday, Friday, and then girls play Wednesday, Saturday? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm like
for the first 90%. And second rounds.
First and second rounds. So the play-in games, if you will. So, well,
it's go time.
It's go time. Let's jump into our inside the numbers. Let's talk a little bit more about the RPI and some matchups. This segment is sponsored by Kimball and Roberts Accounting in Richfield. Thank you for supporting the podcast and as always supporting their South Sevier Rams. I saw Lance and his wife in the game on Thursday, and I actually sent him a message. I'm like, man, I'm bad luck. Every time I come out there, they lose. So I have to stop going and seeing the Rams play. But let's talk a little bit about the RPI first.
Let's run through the boys' RPI real quick. If you'll pull up the girls.
Yep.
Boys' RPI. Let's just go top. Let's go top 12. Anyway, we'll just roll through the boys' RPI. From the top, Enterprise 1, Kanab 2, South Sevier 3, Millard 4, American Heritage 5, Duchesne 6, APA West Valley 7, Parowan 8, San Juan 9, Gunnison Valley 10, North Sevier 11, Roland Hall 12, North Summit 13.
Yeah.
And then we're getting down a little bit deeper. We're going to go as far as we're going to go.
Yeah. So when you start breaking this down, you say, all right, what kind of changes could happen during this next week, right? So we've got all these guys lined up, doing some basic rough calculations on how much this changes. I'm still going to go on record and say the top 4 aren't going to change. So Enterprise, Kanab, South Sevier, and Millard, at some function, that's going to be your top 4 teams. Now, if Enterprise wins...
Staying in the top 4, not necessarily in that specific position, but...
If Enterprise wins one game, they will go number 1.
Gotcha.
It's just the way the numbers are. Nobody's going to catch them. So let's say they beat Parowan and they happen to lose to Enterprise. They're still going to go to number 1. Kanab and South Sevier, they're within
they're close.
I'm looking at it like 1/100th of a point. So depending on what happens this week, those could switch. If Kanab happens to win out, and let's say Enterprise loses 2 games and Kanab wins 2 games this week, Kanab could jump to number 1. South Sevier could possibly do it, but it's a little bit of a stretch. Millard, I think Millard's going to stay at number 4. It might switch unless one of these other 2 teams just the bottom falls out this next week. But as you go down, the next one I'm going to say really has a lot of implications. Gunnison and North Sevier are very, very close. There is a chance, depending on how they play this week, that they could flip-flop or maybe even move up a couple spots, and that could change who they're meeting in those first couple rounds.
So North Severe just has one game, but Gunnison has two. So their implications with Duchesne seems to be pretty darn close. Well, I guess they're not. They might be pretty close to locked into where they're at.
Yeah.
Not much that they could draw. I don't think APA West Valley could catch them. So that Gunnison North Severe game could have some implications there.
Yeah,
it will.
Yeah, it could mean the difference between an 8 or 9, or maybe possibly if Parowan loses and a couple things happen, they could maybe move to a 10 spot. I don't think they're going to get to 8, but
We were talking on the way over, me and my husband, and like for North Severe, that's a must-win game. It's almost the difference. Like, obviously, there's so many different scenarios. You have whoever beats who, but that's the difference in playing like AP. Is that American
Heritage?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's the difference between American Heritage, Duchesne, and Parowan, or a South Severe Millard.
Oh, I agree with you.
And that's like those teams, those South Severe Millard, Power 5 all year. Those other ones have kind of wavered into dark horses, in and out, So that's a huge game.
Yes, I agree with you. My belief is you don't want to go below 11.
No.
Once you hit the 12 spot, then you're playing a Power 5 team,
Yep.
which you just mentioned.
Yep.
yeah, and so right now, as the bracket sits right now, let's say it stays as it is right now, North Severe would play Merritt. The winner of that would play Duchesne. Mm-hmm. Gunnison right now, just for our hometown Bulldogs, they would play Utah Military Academy, and then they would travel up to APA West Valley, which in my opinion isn't a bad draw because they've already beat them once this season. And then you get.
However, what was your experience at APA West Valley?
Not good.
It's probably definitely a different environment than playing at home.
Yeah, for sure. So those are some of the things that are looking right now. Lot could change.
I know you don't have much say, but Parowan's a team I'd want to avoid as well.
Absolutely, I wouldn't want to play currently
In that second round game.
Currently, that would be, here's an interesting one, San Juan and Parowan would play in that second round game, as it is right now.
As it shakes out right now, yeah. At Parowan.
At Parowan, and then the winner would likely play Enterprise in the state tournament.
Yeah.
So, some interesting matchups to look at. When we shift over to the girls, Power 5 and RPI, Beaver 1, North Summit 2, Kanab 3, Draper APA, North Severe Wolves sitting at 5, South Severe 6, Duchesne 7, Parowan 8, American Heritage is clear down at 9, Millard 10, Enterprise 11, 12, Rockwell will go that far. But if you start looking at how some of the matchups would be, North Severe, your hometown North Severe Wolves would have a bye, and then they would play the winner of Rockwell and APA West Valley, which is, I don't want to say it's a given game, but a given game, and then unfortunately they would match up with Draper APA.
I know, and the way it's looking, though, with Draper APA, if they go and beat Richfield, who's sitting very well in 3A, that could even possibly put us playing Kanab.
Very, very possibly, yeah.
That is a big thing to look out for this week.
Yeah, so as that sits, I'm looking at some of the games, some of the brackets who match up against each other. North Summit would likely be in like a Duchesne matchup. Kanab, look at the top teams in their bracket. South Severe, Beaver, they don't have a lot in their bracket. To be honest with you, they got a pretty good path. But Draper APA and North Severe could meet in that first game at the state tournament. So
yep.
A lot could change this week, though. You've got some teams that are right there. Kanab and Draper APA are so close. Beaver's going to go number 1. Just the way they're at right now. So, interesting. A lot of things can happen. Although last year, I remember we kind of went on a limb and say, hey, this is what's going to happen with the RPI, and then it got all...
Now, however, there was other coaches that were firmly on the same opinion as us, and it drastically changed after it went down.
Yep, Enterprise was much different than we thought they were going to be. San Juan still went number 1. So I'll say this before, and I've said it again. If it's really transparent, leave it up. Because why do you go dark? To make some reveal on Saturday? Who cares? You know what I mean?
For an Instagram post, man. That's why.
And it lasts that long, and they're like, oh, we're going to roll this out, and here's the thing. And then everybody's like, whoa, wait, how did this happen? We're like, well, we're transparent, but we're going to hide it for a week. Yeah. So people aren't throwing games. They're not doing any of that stuff. Just leave it up and leave it alone.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
That's my opinion. So a lot of things happening. we'll make sure, as we did last year, Benny did a good job. Once the final brackets were up, we had a little breakdown and had all of our little. We talked about each pod as it went into it. We can do that next week. Actually, we'll go into
have our PDF print off so you can do bracketology on the games
we'll
yourself.
Print it all off, and then we'll break down each one of the 4 brackets like we did last year. I remember last year we had the Wolves bracket with Enterprise, San Juan bracket, the Millard bracket, and
Roland Hall
bracket. So it was fun to break those all down.
That was cool. Yes, we'll do that again.
It was a lot of fun. We can do that on the girls' side too.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Exciting stuff. Well, this has been a good night. We've actually rolled through things fairly quickly tonight.
Did we make it under an hour?
We're going to make it on an hour.
We're going to make it under an hour.
That's
all
impressive.
Right. Well, let's roll into our wrap up, sponsored by G Telco. The second segment, is sponsored by Lightburst Broadband by G Telco, the Sanders family, who are actively getting ready for baseball season.
I imagine they are.
Yes, they are. They've been providing telephone service here in the Gunnison Valley for over 100 years and now providing the fastest, most reliable internet as well. Final thoughts for tonight, Peyton?
Well, I'm just excited for Girls Power 5. It's been a while since we've had a mix-up. Big shake-up this week. Some teams are getting hot, some teams are struggling, but it's coming down to the end, and I'm excited. And then as far as the boys go, I'm excited for the Gunnison North Severe game. It's kind of funny where I normally sit at when you guys came over to North Severe, you guys got there before me and we were sitting right next to each other. So we kind of got to see the crazy side of each other. I was yelling, Ben was yelling at Jet, it was fun, but I'm excited for, that game and hopefully get a win.
Are you planning on going to the state tournament?
Yeah.
Are you excited that it's at Salt Lake Community instead of the SBC? I don't think anybody is.
No.
I'm a little bummed that it's at Slick this year.
I was saying, if you don't want it at the SVC, let's go down to SUU. Or, I feel like there's more teams competing that will be down south.
What is it called down there? It used to be the Syndrome, but
it's the AFEC, America First Credit Union.
I just remember back in the
Athletic Center or something like that. Yes.
Back going
the AFEC.
Yeah. I will.
That's what they call it.
Back in the day, those games, and you go back and look at some of those old games. The Centrum was packed on Friday nights. Those semifinal games, it was packed.
Great environment.
And SVC wasn't. I mean, last year SVC was electric. So hopefully
it's a good turnout.
Hopefully it's a good turnout.
We'll see.
So Benny, final thoughts for tonight.
My final thoughts are basketball's a long season. It really is. And you see the ups and downs of teams, and it's hard for kids to stay locked in for 21, 22 games, what it eventually ends up being. And it takes a toll on coaches too, and coaches' wives.
Oh yeah, you're telling me.
But I'm excited just knowing that there's going to be a team or a couple teams that's really going to get hot and have a lifetime experience through the playoffs. On the boys' side and the girls' side, there's going to be 2 teams, 2 winners at the end. They're going to have a lifetime of memories. It's just going to be exciting to see what team gets hot at that particular time in the playoffs, and who those 2 teams are at the end. I mean, Peyton, you've experienced that, being the highest of highs, going through that journey and getting a win at the end. So that's what I'm excited to see is how that plays out.
Yep. Yeah, I'm excited too. One other thing that I get excited about and why we do this podcast, I get a text tonight from Coach Jeff Johnson from San Juan Broncos.
Nice.
Out of the blue. He said, it's a fun. He sent me this picture. It said, a fun experience that doesn't happen too often. 3 first cousins and an uncle playing against each other in a region game when they played Enterprise. So they had Coach Johnson, Ian Johnson, Dax Hunt, and Colton Segmiller. Those 2 boys are from Enterprise. They played last week, and he sent that. That was really cool to see that. Any other time in the world, nobody sends us a text like that. But because we're doing the podcast, those type of things happen, and we get to see some of the inner workings. We had some texts this last week from Coach Black, from the state champion, defending state champ, San Juan Broncos this week. He was sending us some texts about what's going on and how things were, and catching us up on Bronco basketball. And it was fun to see Coach Glazer, Coach Chad, and Coach Bucky down there and visited with those guys for a while, and they came and visited with us after the game. Coach Christensen, Coach Roberts there from South Sevier. I know we caught up with Coach Rhodes. You caught up with Coach Hoops, too, as well, from Duchesne. Yes. This is what it's all fun about. And so I'm looking forward to these next 2 weeks. State tournament's going to be fun. It's wide open this year. And
that's a common consensus in talking that there is, it could go a variety of ways. No idea how it's going to go.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's all going to come down to matchups and who gets hot from here on out. So, well, we appreciate you joining us tonight on this cold and snowy Sunday night for the Power 5 as we're winding down the basketball season. So for Benny, the coach, for Peyton, I'm Andy Hill, and for the Fourth Row, we're out.
Thank you for spending your time with the Fourth Row. For more information, check out our website at fourthrowmedia.com or send us a message through any of our social media channels.